What up, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, and I wanted to talk about this idea of things being historic. Everything in WWE now is historic. Oh, it's a historic moment. Women main evented NXT. It's a historic moment. Women main evented WrestleMania. It's a historic moment. Roman Reigns has been champion for 25 years. It's a historic moment. Gunther has been champion, Intercontinental champion, for like 2 years, right? Everything is a historic moment. Now, ask yourself, why do you think that is, right? Well, first of all, WWE keeps changing the rules, right? So they'll introduce like a new tag team title, right? They'll be like, this is now the Raw tag team titles, right? And they'll be like, the Usos are the longest reigning Raw tag team champions. Then they'll introduce the new SmackDown titles. They'll be like, the New Day is the longest reigning, whatever, SmackDown tag team champions, right? But this doesn't necessarily correspond to like the other tag team titles that we used to have, right? It's just like when they made the Universal title, they're like, Finn Balor is the first Universal champion. So what? It's a bullshit title until Roman Reigns held it, right? So as far as I'm concerned, everyone that had it before him doesn't count. I don't care at all, cuck. But the point is, the idea of making only historic moments exists because everything is bad, right? I'll give you a great example that actually worked out. Randy Orton was the youngest ever World Heavyweight Champion, right? Now, this worked out because Randy Orton went on to become a legend. But if it didn't, it was just an opportunity to continue to push Randy Orton for several more years because he had like his title run and then he wasn't champion for like several years in a row, right? But the point is, it doesn't matter because he was and he always will be, as far as we know, the youngest world champion in WWE history. Now, that being said, that's special, right? It was Brock Lesnar before him, and then it was him by like a few months, right? So, okay, fine. You can have that, as part of the storyline because it's still rare. Even though you just had Lesnar, right? Then Orton beat that record. So like Lesnar no longer was that guy, right? But then everything started becoming historic to the point where there's nothing historic if everyone has a historic record, right? It's just like the women's division in TNA or even WWE. If every woman has been champion, then it doesn't matter who the champion is now. Who cares? They've all been champion. They're all basically equal, right? At any given moment, Natalya can beat like Willow Nightingale, who I think is an AEW, but you know what I'm saying. I don't even know what wrestlers are in which company at this point, cucks. You know what I'm saying? In the women's division. Like, I don't watch that shit, right? It's like Cora Jade and like Roxanne Perez. Like, you could put them next to each other. I'd be like, I don't know who the fuck's who. You know what I mean? I got no idea. But anyways, the point is, if everyone has historic accolades, the historic accolades are watered down and they're filtered, right? Now, why do they have so many historical accolades? Well, the obvious answer that anyone with 2 brain cells can come to is that the wrestlers that get these accolades suck ass, right? They have nothing else going for them except for the accolade, right? Usually, in the past, the way it would work, it would be like you have a great wrestler, and because you have a great wrestler, that wrestler is gonna get the accolade. Nowadays, everyone's shit, so it's like, which one are we gonna elevate using the accolade, right? We're going to use the accolade to elevate instead of the elevated person gets the accolade, right? As it would be in every other sport, right? It would be like if tomorrow I say, here's a guy named Tex McGillicuddy, right? He's going to join the NBA and he's a 7-time champion, right? You'd be like, wait, what? How can he be a 7-time champion if he hasn't joined the NBA yet? And I say, oh, don't worry about it. That's just how we're going to do it. And then we're going to hope that he actually becomes a 7-time champion, right? But the point is, in wrestling, you can actually do that because there's really no way to judge if a wrestler actually is good or not, right? I've been having this mini debate with some new fan. Just like I knew that he was a new fan, he said he'd been watching for a year. I'm having this debate with him, and he's saying that Gunther is good, right? And good for him, man. I respect the fact that you have an opinion, even though in my opinion, it's not your own opinion, right? It's just the opinion of the internet. Gunther's great. Everyone believes it, right? But the point is, this guy's been watching for a year. So he has no idea what good is, right? He doesn't understand. So to him, it's like, oh, this guy's presented as good. He's been champion for 2 years. Therefore, he must be good. That's not sufficient, right? The fact that they let Gunther become Intercontinental Champion for 2 years doesn't mean that Gunther is good, right? Like, it would be a different story, for example, if Gunther had had like a 10-year career, right? Where like the first 5 years weren't spent in NXT UK doing nothing, right? Oh, you had match of the night against Mark Coffey. Did he? Who cares? Nobody watched it, right? The point I'm trying to make is this. If someone gets elevated and then they get the accolade, then that title gets elevated or that accolade gets elevated, right? That's the idea. The wrestler makes the belt, not the belt makes the wrestler, right? Imagine this. Imagine if Gunther had been undefeated for like however long he's been undefeated, but he was not Intercontinental Champion, right? What then, right? Nothing. People would be like, oh, Gunther sucks and it's boring, right? Just like the same way that nobody is clamoring for David Ogogo from AEW to get a push, right? He's been undefeated for like 25 years, right? He's been undefeated the entire time in AEW except for that match against Cody, right? But nobody cares because he doesn't have a title. But that's not why people don't care. It's because Anthony Ogogo sucks, right? It's the same thing with Gunther. Like, nobody really cares about him because he sucks. You can put 20 titles on him, he's still gonna suck. That's the point I'm trying to make. The only title, really, that has the capacity to elevate someone is the one world title. At any given moment in history, there is one world title, except for in the beginning of the brand split when we had the big gold belt. At that point, both titles were treated equally. Like, of course, there were some years where one's more important and some years where the other is more important, but both titles main event at WrestleMania. So if you got one of those titles, then you were made, right? But nowadays, if everyone has accolades, you have to start asking, well, wait a second. What's so great? Like, honestly, I understand that there's a consensus, for example, that Charlotte Flair is a great wrestler. Now, Charlotte Flair is athletic. I'm not going to deny that, right? But is she entertaining, cucks? Is she entertaining? The answer is she's not entertaining. And if you think she is, you've been duped. I'm sorry to tell you. You've been duped. She just is a Ric Flair ripoff. In the beginning of her career, she'd go out there, she'd do chops and go, woo! And then people would be like, oh, woo, right? They would just like her because she's Ric Flair's daughter. Now, she does have good moves, right? In the context of women's wrestling, she's probably the best women's wrestler they got, right? But is she entertaining? Has she ever entertained you? Have you ever looked forward to a promo by Charlotte Flair? No, you haven't. Nobody has, right? Whereas, for example, in the context of Lita and Trish Stratus, they have entertained you countless times, right? Countless times. One of the most memorable moments in the Attitude Era for me was this throwaway six-man tag team match, right? The Hardys and Lita versus the Radicals, right? And in the end, it was an elimination match, so it was Dean Malenko and Lita, and he beat Lita, right? This was an important moment in Lita's career, not only because, she could wrestle against men, but the idea was that she can put on a story, right? That there's more to this match than some in-ring nonsense and a promo by Dean Malenko. There's a story, right? You're entertained by Lita because it's part of the story. And I could say the same thing about Jacqueline, Chyna, Trish, a lot of women in the past, right? But since women's wrestling got taken too seriously, there's been no entertainment. Like, nobody's entertained by guessing what color wig Sasha Banks is going to have next time on AEW. Nobody should care about that, right? And it's the same thing with people like Gunther, right? It doesn't matter if Gunther is Intercontinental Champion for 3 more years. Nothing's going to change. Like, I was looking, because I was curious, I was looking to see, right, how many pay-per-view matches Gunther had. And it's like every 3 pay-per-views, Gunther is in there, right? Other 2, he's not. He'll have a match on pay-per-view against, like, some jobber, right? It'll be him versus, like, The Miz, which I love, but he is a jobber at this point, right? And then he'll beat The Miz, and then 2 pay-per-views go by, and he's not there, right? And I'm supposed to believe that he's elevated the Intercontinental title, the same title that was defended at every pay-per-view by Benoit, Angle, and Jericho. Gunther has elevated it? Have you people lost your minds, right? And in doing this, in looking at what pay-per-views Gunther has been in, I came to yet another realization about this, right? Of course he's not going to be in pay-per-views because nobody cares. He's never going to draw a dime on his own, right? And I got nothing against Gunther, like the man that plays the wrestler, but he's boring, right? Just like in my other video, and I explained it. Boring people don't draw money, right? People would much rather watch an entertaining person who's not good at what they do than someone who is good at what they do, quote unquote, but is not entertaining. We have seen this time and time again, right? Now, in the context of something like the Intercontinental title, right? You can look at, for example, Jericho. Jericho was like a main eventer at a certain point, right? Or at least an upper mid-carder. And he was a WCW guy. And he was incredibly entertaining and charismatic, right? As a result, Jericho had the record for most Intercontinental title reigns, right? I still think he does, right? And the entire point of that is because Jericho is great, we're going to attach this element, this accolade to him, right? It's going to be what sets him apart from other mid-carders, right? But when someone doesn't have anything going for them, right, in the present day, they just invent an accolade and they're like, this is now the record. Like Braun Strowman, who will never draw a dime, even though he should be like the biggest star in wrestling right now. Braun Strowman, who's boring, right? Like he's boring, cucks. Braun Strowman has the record for most eliminations in a Royal Rumble. So what? Who cares? Braun Strowman has never entertained anybody. That's the problem, right? And this is why people don't realize certain clear things. Like, for example, Big Show and Kane are awesome, right? People, oh, Big Show should retire. Why? Why should Big Show retire? So we can see Braun Strowman? So we can see Luke Harper? Have you people lost your minds? Absolutely not. Rest in peace, Luke Harper. But you get my point, right? Big Show and Kane are awesome wrestlers. They're good on the mic, right? They have great comedic timing, and they're big, believable guys. Now, Braun Strowman is a big, believable guy, but that's it. He doesn't have good comedic timing. He's kind of goofy and foolish, right? And more importantly, he's boring. It's as simple as that. He's boring, so nobody cares that he's gone, and nobody cares about his accolade, right? Other wrestlers don't have to work for their accolades, right? There's people that can earn them on their own. Like, for example, Kofi Kingston is like the number 2 guy after Kane in terms of Royal Rumble appearances because he doesn't get injured that often, right? And he's consistent. So he's earned that. Gunther hasn't earned it. People are like, oh, he put the Intercontinental title on the map. No, he didn't. There was a point where the Intercontinental title was contested by wrestlers like Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho. You'd see that on a pay-per-view. On a throwaway, like a fully loaded. It'd be like Jericho versus Angle for the Intercontinental title. Now, if you're lucky, you might see it as like the third match on Raw, and it'd be like Gunther versus Otis, right? 2 guys that definitely are not even close to Jericho and Kurt Angle, no matter what you tell me, right? It'll like Gunther will legit have a match with Tozawa and it'll be competitive, right? Kurt Angle, if you put him against like, I don't know, S.A. Rio, someone similar, what would happen is this. 3 German suplexes, Angle slam, grapevine of the ankle lock, and S.A. Rios would be tapping in like 2 seconds, right? Because there was a clear hierarchy. The IC title meant something, right? The accolade meant something, right? And now it no longer does, cucks.